Phenomenal Women Club, the podcast where you'll hear women being unapologetically phenomenal every episode. I'm Jordan, your host and fellow traveler on this journey of self-discovery, growth and empowerment. As a social worker and a life coach for women, I've spent years working with phenomenal women from all walks of life, learning firsthand the power of shared experiences and collective wisdom. I created this podcast because I believe every woman has a unique story to tell. And through these stories, we can inspire, uplift, and empower one another. We can expect to hear from everyday women who face obstacles, they found their strength, and are living their truth. And we'll also share some practical advice and tools for you to embrace your own phenomenal journey. Whether you're seeking motivation, connection, or simply a reminder of your own strength, this is the place for you. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's get started. You guys already know what I'm going to say. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok at the PW Club. That's the shortened version. Subscribe on YouTube to be updated about all of the new episodes and any exciting news the podcast has to share. Share this episode with friends, with family, other phenomenal women who you think could benefit. Links in the bio. All right, ladies. So by now, you should know I am a huge fan of Am I the Asshole scenarios. This is the Am I the Asshole segment. We're going to have one in every episode because you already know that these threads are packed with thought-provoking and controversial scenarios where people are asking if they are wrong or if they are right. Each episode, we're going to dive into a real-life scenario and break it down together. Are you ready? Okay, let's get into it. Okay, am I the asshole for not wanting to babysit for my relatives anymore? Okay, I'm going to jump into the comments after because I already think she's not an asshole, but here we go. Throw away because our relatives know my main account and I cherish plausible deniability. So this is clearly a different account because she's worried about her relatives finding the post. Okay. In short, I agreed to help look after my cousin's child due to skyrocketing daycare costs as a temporary fix. I would give them 1 day a week. The understanding between me and my cousin and his wife was that this was temporary, as stated. Okay, cool. My cousin seemed to have forgotten that part. He now expects me to be down there every week. Between drive time and waiting for his wife to get home and take over, that's an entire day where I do nothing but travel or babysit. I spend more hours a day watching his kid than I do at my own part-time position with no compensation. He intends for me to keep this schedule clear to fall as he signed up for multiple college classes and decided that to accommodate this schedule, I'll be there every week and keep not only the toddler, but a newborn as well. I can't. Okay, let's get through it. Let's get through this. At no point was I consulted about this idea. He already signed up for courses and just sprung this plan on me the last time I was over. I can't even wait to the end. This is quite a long Am I the Arsehole. This is unbelievable. Firstly, looking after children is hard enough. Looking after other people's children is an extra layer of difficult. And then this is the whole scenario of when you give somebody an inch and they take a mile. So you've offered to help for a temporary period of time, and now they have factored you into their life plans without telling you. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. But let's continue. From my perspective, I'm down to 1 day a week to myself, and I spend most of it trying to recharge. I never leave the house now except to go to work, to get groceries, and to go to their house. Between extended hours at work and babysitting, I have no energy for my hobbies, and that helps me decompress. I am clearly completely burnt out. The thought of keeping that up for months is doing something to my mental health. I feel like I'm just a means to an end since my cousin's wife gets home. I am rushed out of the house as she and the baby have somewhere to go. Oh, wait, sorry. I am rushed out of the house as she and the baby have somewhere to go. I feel like I am being taken advantage of because I tried to help once and I know that my relatives understood that it wasn't a long-term fix to their problem. You are being taken advantage of 120%. Yes, you are. But I digress. Let's continue. At the same time, I understand my cousin and his family. And you know what? Sorry, and another comment. The fact that you were helping with the oldest child, and then they've gone and even had a second one when clearly they were relying solely on your help. This is poor family planning. If you are struggling to look after the one, why are you having the two? But let me continue. At the same time, I understand my cousin and his family couldn't have expected the sudden hike in daycare costs. And I know they're struggling financially. My cousin is trying hard to get his degree and do better by his family, while his wife works long hours to keep them afloat. I know they don't need added stress on top of everything else, which includes having a second child on the way. Poor family planning, like I said. Let us continue. I know they don't need added stress on top of everything else, which includes having a second child on the way. I've only held out this long because I love the kid I watch. Recent events are actually why I made this post. I told my cousin that we'd have to see if I was available in the fall, which he seemed okay with. Afterwards, older relatives reached out to me about this conversation, urging me towards keeping up the current arrangement. This has frustrated me greatly, but I also wonder how much stock there is in the idea I should suck it up because they have a bigger problem than my being exhausted. So Reddit, am I the arsehole for wanting to pull back from this arrangement? Well, the answer is no. The answer is no. And I think like the whole idea about being exhausted is not as much a big of a deal as their childcare issues is not true. We know, especially as women, that when we get exhausted, it has an impact on our bodies. Right. And there's even research coming out to say that like the women being carers has an impact on our autoimmune system. It's a serious thing. Being exhausted is not a joke. It's absolutely not a joke. And you are entitled and you're allowed to be exhausted. And that doesn't come at the expense of someone else. Like that by itself is a big deal. And that should be prioritized over wanting to help someone else look after their children. In my perspective, you guys might think differently. Please feel free to comment below. My thing is this. Your cousin and his wife should have thought about what they were going to do when they had children. Yes, the childcare costs have gone up. I live in London. Childcare costs are also crazy. Then you factor that in. And maybe you get the support of several different family members, all these older family members who have come to you to ask you to make sure that you continue with the arrangement. Get them involved. Spread out the care and spread out the burden amongst other people. It's not fair that this whole thing is the whole arrangement is on your shoulders. That's crazy. And you haven't planned, like these are not your children. You haven't planned to look after these children, but yet you are making sacrifices as if you did. And then the other point, I'll say it again, it's the poor family planning. So you already know that the one child is expensive. You already know that you're having to utilize, your relatives' help for the one child. How come you're having a second one so quickly? What's going on? Where was there? If anything, the relative looking after your oldest child should have been consulted. And it's not it just happened. When you are struggling like that, when you're reliant on somebody to look after your kids in order to keep this arrangement that you've got going, you better be consulting people if you're thinking to have another child, because now this is a community child. Like everyone's involved in the care of this child. Let me go and see if there's any updates, because I love a Reddit update. So the first comment is, not the arsehole. You have done way more than enough. Absolutely. It is completely acceptable. And in fact, you owe it to yourself to say, I know it's hard, but I can't sustain this anymore. So we need to talk about how to transition you to regular daycare since I'm not going to be able to continue out in the fall. Absolutely brilliant advice. And there's a lot of comments. The overall feeling is that this person is not the arsehole. This is wild. And I think this is such a good example of women who offer to support, and you offer to help somebody, and you want to be helpful. We are socialized and we are expected to be helpers of our community. We help out, we volunteer where we can, we do all the things. And then, unfortunately for us, People take advantage of the offer of help, and then you become burdened with what was then, which was previously their problem. It now becomes your problem. It's a skill to be able to step away from the problem and say, actually, this has got nothing to do with me. I'm not going to be part of this. I've done enough, as the comment said. I'm actually going to step away from this now. Like, you guys must be able to figure something else out. Good luck, Godspeed. And I really hope this is what this person has said, because this is going to snowball. What in like a year or two from now, they decide to have another baby. So then you're looking after three. No. Where does it end? Where does the madness end? No. Definitely not the arsehole. Right. Guys, comment and let me know in the comments if you think that I'm right, if you think I'm being too harsh, if you think that she should continue to help look after her relative's baby, let me know. But that is the Am I the Arsehole segment. So each week I highlight a phenomenal woman who is making an impact in her community, breaking barriers, or inspiring others. And I had to really think long and hard this week about who I was going to choose, because this week's been a really tough week on the timeline. I don't know if you guys are like social media heads just like me, but this week a lot has been going on for women, and it's been quite a negative and heavy timeline. So actually, but the phenomenal woman, and this is not to take away from the phenomenal woman that I'm about to nominate, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that she's a phenomenal woman because of very, very awful and difficult circumstances. But I'll explain while I'm nominating her. So I am nominating Gisele Pelicot. I think that's how you pronounce it. Like, I failed French. Like, I don't really know. Like, I didn't fail. I didn't really do great in French. But you guys have probably heard. She is a French woman who is currently giving evidence against her husband, who, how do I say this on this podcast, who is responsible for her being assaulted several times throughout their marriage by, I think they've said it is something like 70 men. The story is crazy, but I don't want to focus on what this, and I don't like calling perpetrators of domestic abuse or assault monsters. I like to name them as what they are, and that's men. So I'm not going to spend this podcast talking about men and talking about what this man and the husband and these other men did to this woman. What I am going to talk about is the strength of Gisele. The strength of this woman who could have made it a private hearing. So she had the option of keeping it private, which would have meant that it would have all happened behind closed doors. You know, maybe the media would have picked up on it, but also maybe not. It would have been dealt with privately, and I'm sure she would have gone her way. And I hope justice would have been served. But she said, nope, name them and shame them. I want the men who assaulted me to be shamed, and I want my husband, who is responsible and orchestrated this whole situation, to be shamed. I want their names to be in the newspaper. I want their faces to be plastered everywhere because of what they've done to me, and the heinous nature of this crime. We want it public. And I think for that, because we already know that women who are assaulted, and especially sexual assault, they are shamed and they are blamed. We already know that. So for her to choose to make this a public trial so that there was no hiding for these perpetrators, Gisele is she is the phenomenal of the phenomenal. Like, she is up there, because wow. And it's such a selfless act, because it's really brought the conversation to the public, to the front of the public. Like, I have not been able any day this week to go onto my Instagram or my any TikTok, my Instagram, without being able to, my Twitter, without being able to see like a think piece, an article, a discussion happening about what has happened to Gisele. I've seen the pictures and the name. Well, I don't think I've seen the names, but the pictures of the perpetrators on my timeline, being shared. I'm sure I don't know what's happening on French Twitter. I'm not on the algorithm, but I'm sure this is a conversation that is happening around France. It's happening globally. That the violence against women, and the reason why this conversation is happening. Well, one of the reasons why this conversation is happening is because of Gisele. I've seen pictures of her going to court. She has honestly, the strength of this woman. She's gone to court. She's been in the courtroom. I'm sure there's probably an option for her to maybe be behind the screen. That's what we have in the British court system, that if you are, a victim of domestic abuse or sexual assault, you can be behind the screen and give evidence that way. But she is in court with her, I think she's got a daughter, sitting there giving her evidence and holding it down for herself. Honestly, it is such a show of strength. It's amazing to watch. It's such unfortunate circumstances, but it's amazing to watch that she has been able to be in the courtroom with all of the other perpetrators, might I add, also there. She's been able to face, the judge has said a few dodgy comments. I'm sure you guys could go and read that, but she's challenged the judge on a few occasions. She's given her evidence. She's explained what's happened to her, and she's also given statements outside of the court hearing. Could you imagine? Like, nobody wants to imagine what's happened to her happening to them because it's so bad. But imagine what's happened to you. Imagine you are in the courtroom with these perpetrators. You are surrounded by all this press, and you're probably having to relive and re-experience and talk about your experiences, which are awful. And then after the hearing, you are coming outside to give statements to the press to make sure that the press understand your position, your point of view, and that you want justice to be served. Gisele Pelicot. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Anyone French, any of the French listeners, please get at me. Let me know how you pronounce it. You are the phenomenal women of this week, because my God, the strength that we have seen is unmatched, absolutely unmatched. And again, to put yourself in a position where the conversation, like where you have allowed yourself to be in the news, so that this conversation about male violence, about violence in marriages, about sexual assault in marriages, because that's a lot of people don't understand that that's illegal. To make sure that these perpetrators are named and shamed, which could be saving hundreds of, there's like, I think 70 other perpetrators. You could be saving hundreds of women from interacting with these men. I was even reading today, and I know I said I wasn't going to go into talk about the men, but one of the perpetrators is a nurse. And I thought, oh my goodness, wherever it is that man works, they need to do a review, and they need to speak to every women patient he's worked with, especially women patients who have been unconscious, especially women patients who may not be able to advocate for themselves. They need to go and interview every single one of them. And I hope that they do that with every single one of the perpetrators. They look at who's around them, and they interview every single woman around them, because I'm hoping the judge throws the book. I don't even know what I want everything thrown at them. I want them underneath the jail. But that's enough about them. Gisele, you are the phenomenal woman of the week. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for letting this conversation happen in the public sphere. It's just wow. If you have a phenomenal woman that you would like to nominate to be spoken about on the podcast, please drop me an email at info@thepwclub.com, or tag them in one of the comments on TikTok or Instagram. DM me and we'll make that happen. Now it's time for the something for your phenomenal toolbox segment of the podcast. And this is where I share some incredible resources to help you feel more empowered in both your personal and professional life. Whether you're looking for a great read, a new app, maybe you want to listen to a new influencer, a new podcast, just something to really help you on your journey. This is the segment of the show where I share that. So let's get into this week's recommendation. This week, I am recommending a book which I swear by. It is the Brené Brown book. I don't know if there's any Brené Brown fans, but I am a huge fan, and it's Daring Greatly. Daring Greatly is one of the best books I've written, and it's about she's a shame and vulnerability researcher, which sounds like, ooh, but Brené Brown knows her stuff. She knows her stuff. I want you guys to go to wherever it is that you buy your books. I'm not about to advertise for any platform here until they pay me. Go to where you buy your books or you listen to your audiobooks and search for Brené Brown's Daring Greatly. It is brilliant. And that's actually one of the reasons why I've made a decision to resume my podcast, because she just is able to, for somebody like me who struggles with I hate vulnerability, and so does she, but she's so, and obviously I'm a coach now, so I can't hate it. I struggle. It's one of my biggest struggles because on the other side of vulnerability is strength, and so much strength comes from vulnerability, and that's where Daring Greatly is so good at being able to dissect why we feel the way that we feel, why vulnerability is so hard, how to challenge our views about vulnerability being weakness, because it's not, and what we can do once we've challenged vulnerability and we want to embrace it. It just breaks it down so well. And she also weaves in like her own personal kind of stories from her own life, which I find absolutely hilarious. It's a great read. You'll get through it very quickly. I think I've read it twice now. Maybe this is the third time. I'm rereading it currently. This is the third time now. That needs to go straight into your phenomenal toolbox. Please go and get it. Let me know how you guys like it. Comment. Let me know. That's it, folks. That is it. My first episode of the Phenomenal Women Club, short and sweet, but thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. I will be back next week with a guest, so please tune in. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, follow us on TikTok and Instagram, interact with the page. There's a great community there. Leave a review wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Let us know what you think. I love feedback. So reach out, give me some feedback on how I can reach more phenomenal women just like yourself. The conversation doesn't have to end here. Reach out to the like-minded women in the comments. There's a lot of Instagram and TikTok comments, and people send me DMs all the time. If you see people in the comments interacting, reach out, say hi, start building your community. And as I said, if you know a phenomenal woman who you want to be celebrated, drop me an email at info@thepwclub.com. If you have a dilemma that you would like to be discussed anonymously, don't worry, we won't use any names. Again, that's the email to get me on. And also, and finally, share this podcast with other phenomenal women, friends, family. Maybe you go to a mother-baby group. Maybe you have chats with your friends at the school gates or whatever it is. Maybe you're having meetings at work, and you think that this podcast would be something that people benefit from. Share it. Share it. Let's create a world where every woman embraces her power and potential. Guys, thank you so much. And I'll see you next week for more conversations that empower and stories that inspire. Bye.